position in the Library of Congress, vast storehouse of historical documents, is the Constitution of the United States, once called the most wonderful work ever struck off by the brain and purpose of man. For in this charter are set forth the Republican form of the federal government and the democratic principles under which it functions. The Constitution delegates powers to three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial, each subject to checks by the others. Created by Article 1 of the Constitution is Congress, the national legislature. The home of the Congress and scene of its deliberations is the massive national Capitol, the cornerstone of which was laid by the first President of the United States. Within its walls, history-making events have shaped the course of the nation's development for nearly a century and a half. Immortalized in Statuary Hall, where the lower house once met, are the favorite sons of the various states. Among them are folk heroes, legislators, and presidents who have played a conspicuous role in American life. Congress is a bicameral legislature consisting of two houses. Occupying the north wing is the upper house called the Senate. And at the opposite end is the lower house where the representatives meet. From public galleries, visitors may watch the legislative proceedings of Congress, which meets at noon on the days when it is in session. Out of the procedures of this national legislature come the laws of the land. They provide for the general welfare of the nation, regulate its commerce, and set up a common defense. Among congressional powers, none are more important than the raising of revenues and the appropriation of federal funds. For this control over the government purse brings the executive and judicial branches under the scrutiny of Congress, which provides funds for their activities. In its debates, Congress considers problems of national and world importance, and every word is recorded, so that not only those who attend the sessions, but all the nation may know how congressmen stand on current issues. While attention often is focused on the floor debates, most of the real work of Congress is done in behind-the-scenes conferences, where important decisions are made by the members. Senators and representatives talk frequently with correspondents of newspapers and worldwide press services, giving their views on legislative matters. Members of Congress must attend to a wide variety of matters off the floor. Party leaders, like Ohio's Robert Alphonso Taft, must go to one meeting after another to consider specific legislation not yet ready for debate. Hurrying through their legislative day and saving every step possible, senators divide their time between the Capitol and the Senate Office Building. Located in the Senate Office Building are Senate committee rooms and the offices of the individual members of the upper house. United States senators are elected for 6-year terms, and each of the 48 states, regardless of its size, is represented by 2. To qualify for his office, a senator must have reached the age of 30 and have been a citizen of the United States for 9 years. The prestige of his office is increased by a senator's power to confirm presidential appointments and to ratify treaties. In the House of Representatives, the number of members from each state is determined by its population, with a total membership of 435. A member of the House of Representatives serves a 2-year term, must be at least 25 years old, and for 7 years a citizen. An indispensable part of the legislative machinery of Congress is its committee system, which covers a wide range of subjects. Legislation introduced by members of Congress is referred to the appropriate committee, which reports its recommendations. To carry out its administrative function of supervising the government, the Congress has the power to investigate other branches of the federal government. Armed with the power of subpoena and unencumbered by usual judicial restraints, congressional investigations may reach into such high levels as the White House itself. When well-known personalities are involved, the committee hearing is transformed into a Klieg-lighted spectacle, which draws overflow crowds. In some cases, the testimony reveals a need for new legislation, and in others, proves to be a tempest in a teapot.
Parlor conversation, but it is contrary to certainly anything I've ever done in my life. It would be absolutely ridiculous for me to make the statement that I was very close to the president. I've been very close to the president for 30 years.
From time to time, when vital issues such as the need of our allies for post-war aid arise, the president appears before Congress to ask for legislation to meet the emergency.
I consider it of the highest importance that the Congress should authorize support for the European Recovery Program for the period from April 1st, 1948 to June 30th, 1952, with an initial amount for the first 15 months of $6.8 billion. I urge the Congress to act promptly on this vital measure of our foreign policy, on this decisive contribution to world peace.
Bills embodying the foreign aid proposal, popularly called the Marshall Plan, soon are ready for consideration by congressional committees. First witness to testify is General George C. Marshall, then Secretary of State in President Truman's cabinet, who outlines to the committee the situation that made the program necessary and explains why it would cost our government billions of dollars.
As the Secretary of State and as the initial representative of the executive branch of the government, in the presentation of the program to your committee, I will first outline my convictions as to the extent and...
Committee approval, it is ready for debate by the members, is based on his study of the proposal, on the testimony of experts given at hearings, and on the feelings toward the measure in the presiding officers of the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it is then sent to the President for his signature. At the White House, the presidential signing sometimes is accompanied by considerable ceremony, attended by legislators instrumental in the measure's enactment and by members of executive departments charged with administration of the law. But in the event the president objects to a measure, he may return it to Congress with his veto, which can be overridden only by a two-thirds vote of both houses. Once a law is enacted, it can be invalidated only by the Supreme Court, which, when a legal test is brought, passes on the question of whether the measure is within the powers vested in Congress by the Constitution. Unlike the presidential veto, the decision of the Supreme Court cannot be overridden by Congress, whose only recourse is to attempt to redraft the measure in such a form as to avoid conflict with the court's opinions. As important as these checks upon the work of the legislature may be, they are not any more important as far as the congressman is concerned than that imposed by his constituency. For it is before the people who elect him that a congressman must stand on his record, and whether he returns to office is determined by their votes.